I'll call to order the May meeting of the Finance Committee. We do have all four committee members here, Jeff McIntosh, Dee Dee Adams, James Taylor, and Robert Clark. So we will begin the meeting. Due to the safer at home order, all committee members are participating virtually. For virtual meetings, committee members will be muted until asked to be heard. When there is a vote, it will be necessary to take a roll call vote. Committee member will be recognized, raise their hand, and state their vote. With that, we will begin as usual with the consent agenda. Are there any items anyone would want pulled from consent?
C1.
C1, and which one is that?
The monthly revenue update.
Okay, that's one I wanted to. Any others?
Mr. Chairman, if there are no others, I make a motion to approve the balance.
Mr. Taylor has made a motion to approve the balance of consent. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. McIntosh is second. If the clerk will please hold the
Mayor
committee.
Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Councilmember McIntosh,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
and Councilmember Clark.
Aye. Those are approved. We will now go to C1. If the clerk will please read that.
Item C1, monthly revenue update.
All right. Ms. Adams, do you have a specific question or would you like a quick presentation? What would you
A
like?
quick presentation. I think this is important every month when we have this on consent.
Ms. Tony, I see you there. Would you like to take the floor and present this, please?
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, Chairman Clark, and members of the committee and council. So before you see our May revenue report. This report lists all of our major revenues in high-level categories. Each month we've provided updates and there's been little changes, but in this particular report, you will know a significant increase in our sales tax number. So that sales tax number has been just trending high. As you're aware, there's been quite an infusion of federal stimulus money into the local economy. Meredith, if you want to share the report again.
That's better. Yeah.
Okay.
Mine was fuzzy a minute ago. Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Okay. Yeah, so there's been an infusion of resources into the local economy. And so we believe that has had a huge impact on our sales tax number with the stimulus checks and various other factors. So that's been growing. So what we decided to do is change our year-end projection on sales tax. And so you'll see that growth to just reflect the continued growth. I believe we discussed last month that looking into FY22, we don't want to go too far only because we don't know how long this trend will continue, but you will see increases reflected there as well. The other categories are have not changed since last month. You'll see the sales tax graph below the major chart there, and just you can see the black line. Meredith, if you could scroll up just a little bit, is the FY21 actuals for sales tax. So you can see how it's trending well above the FY20, which is the light blue line, and the FY21 projected. The sales tax, the occupancy taxes by month. You can see this light blue line is the FY20, and then the black line is FY21 actuals. And so the black line is just kind of where we are. It's trending well below what we projected for this current year. It's about 47.1% reduction compared to last year's actuals. And you can see that reflected in the line. There are no other changes to the other graphs at this point, but as we continue to do more projections, we'll update fairgrounds and parking funds as we receive information.
Ms. Tony, could you, Meredith, could you bring up the mass transit or WISTA chart? I have a question there. There we go. If you look at that for 20 actual, it was $4.3 million balance. we're going to end this year about the same, and then we're projecting over a $4 million pull in fiscal year 2022. If the staff could provide, and I asked for this several years ago, and you gave me, I think, 20-year history. Can you expand that? I don't, if you've got 2020 would be nice to add, although I know that's more of an exception year, but can we see maybe 25 years of ridership? And I'll just forewarn everybody when budget comes, I'm having a hard time understanding why we would suddenly be 4 million down on that. With that, Mr. McIntosh has a comment.
Yeah, we're looking at plugging some of our fund balances with ARPA dollars. Are any of these funds eligible to have money plugged into them? And if so, I mean, that's a one-time deal, and we need to deal with why they're continually losing money year over year. But will that be a temporary stopgap that will be available to us?
Yes, so we just received the guidance today on the ARPA funds. Yes, there will be some of these funds, obviously like fairgrounds, that potentially would be able to receive some of the funds, but we will go through all of the funds and see, comparing with the guidance on what we can actually recover. But you are right, Councilmember McIntosh, this will be a one-time deal to look at restoration and lost revenues during the pandemic years. So we will have something this week on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let me just reiterate that we literally just got within the last hour communications from, I think, National League of Cities or North Carolina League of Municipalities, et cetera. So I'm anticipating that Mr. Rao and Ms. Tony will be reading that late into the night, but hopefully we'll have us some comments in the morning. But that is good news. At least we can find out what we can use it for. Ms. Adams.
Yes, thank you. The WISTA Fund reserves, Councilmember Clark, remind me, we kind of hit the floor a couple of times since I've been on the council that the WISTA reserves dropped below the floor. I'd like to see, going back to 2010, the graph of where we were because of some of the things that we had to do then. Then we had the route change that had never happened but once in our lifetime. So, and Mr. Garrity, Ms. Tony, Mr. Rao, I'd like to know, again, kind of call outs at the bottom in a matrix for the year of corrective actions or things we did to try to fix it. But we've been in this place before, Mr. Garrity. Am I right or wrong?
Good evening, Chairman Clark, Member Tim Adams, Mayor Jones, members of council. Yes, we've been in this situation before. We'll get you more detail. There is a separate amount of money for WISTA in mass transit coming from ARPA. That we may be able to use some of that to offset some of next year's loss. That's also worst case scenario, as you've seen it many times. That's assuming that we do not get a certain amount of state funding, but we'll bring you that. We'll bring you all the different corrective items that we've done in the past and where we think we are going into next year.
Okay, so to add to Ms. Adams, a very long span of the fund balance, which is a nice history, as well as ridership. And I think that will be very helpful. Ms. Adams, what I remember is about every time we seem to be falling off a cliff, somehow we get some special grant or something, but it's always kind of holding your breath to the last minute, but the staff will get us some information. And I know, Mr. Garrity, in times past, you've also highlighted on that chart when there were major events, such as adding Saturday service or this, that, and other, which would be helpful. All righty. Thank you. Any other comments on C1? It's just for information only. Thank you all very much. We will now move to the general agenda. If we'll go to G1, please.
Item G1, resolution awarding construction contract for Salem Phase 2 improvement for Bar Construction Company Incorporated.
Mr. DeCane, can you give us just a quickie on this one?
Yeah, good afternoon, Chairman Clark, Mayor Joynes, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the committee, and members of the City Council. I take pleasure in introducing our city engineer, Mr. Robert Prestwood. He'll give you a quick brief on this.
Good afternoon, Chairman Clark, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, Mayor Joins, and members of the council. This item is to approve a construction contract for Phase 2 of Salem Lake Park bond project. The project includes rebuilding the bulkhead at the lake, building a new boat dock, building a new boat storage house that will have a open air pavilion type area on the second floor, building a new picnic shelter beside where we built the playground in Phase 1, paving the existing parking lot that's at the playground and adding additional parking at the playground. Take any questions if anybody has any.
Any question, Miss Adams?
Yes. Mr. Presswood or Mr. Garrett or Mr. Rao, I would be interested to see some of these major projects that we've done doing 14 and 18 bonds. What has been the increase in usage of these areas? Do we have any numbers that can show us that these improvements at the major ones like Salem Lake and the Quarry and possibly Winston Lake of any increased citizen attendance? And if we're not tracking that, we need to figure out how we can start tracking that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Taylor, this is in your ward. Would you like to make a motion on this?
No further questions or comments at this time, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for your comments, Councilmember Adams. We'll try to get that information. I move for approval of item G1.
We have a motion to approve G1. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second motion and a second for approval of item G1. I will poll the council members, or the city clerk will.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Councilmember McIntosh,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Aye. That is approved. Thank you very much. City clerk, please read G2.
Item G2, resolution awarding contract for concrete streets replacement to Sharp Brothers, a division of Patillo and Groven Incorporated.
Mr. Kane, these happen to be in my ward, but would you give a introduction to this, please?
Yes, sir. I take pleasure again in introducing our city engineer, Mr. Robert Presswood.
Mr. Presswood, you have the floor.
And good afternoon again. This item is to approve a construction contract to completely rebuild 5 concrete streets. These streets, when they were originally built decades ago, were built with concrete and then have had asphalt overlaid multiple times. This eventually creates a problem with drainage because the curb and gutter is no longer tall enough to deal with the water. And then once the concrete underneath the road starts crumbling, those cracks end up showing through the asphalt. And there's not much we can do beyond that point. So what this contract does is completely tears out the entire street and rebuilds it as a standard street that we would require in a new neighborhood today.
Thank you. This is the major item from the 2018 bond referendum for the West Ward. May have been the only one, but this was certainly the major one. As was pointed out, these are great roads until the concrete cracks and then the asphalt cracks accordingly, and you really can't fix them because you got to go all the way down. And we did the same thing on Pine Valley Road maybe 3 or 4 years ago, something like that. So anyway, any questions or comments? If not, can I get a motion on item G2?
I move for approval of item G2.
We have a second. We have a motion to second to approve G2. If the clerk will please poll the committee.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Councilmember McIntosh,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Aye. That is approved. We will now go to item G3. If the clerk will please read that one.
Item G3, resolution approving financial assistance to Project Blue Wave pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 158-7.1.
Mr. Rao, I've got your name here if you want to kick this off. And
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Chairman Clark, Mayor Joins, Mayor Pro Tempore Adams, and members of the City Council. I'd like to recognize Ken Millett, the director of our Business Inclusion and Advancement Office, who will present this item this afternoon. We also have Laura Lee and Walter Farabee with Greater Winston-Salem, Inc., who will be also providing you information about this particular project.
Okay, thank you. You folks are all welcome. And Mr. Millett, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman Clark. Good evening, Mayor Joins, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, and members of City Council. This item concerns an economic development project that's currently codenamed Project Blue Wave. This company is a leading global supplier of value-added recyclable metal and glass packaging solutions for world's leading brands. It operates 8 aluminum can and can-end manufacturing sites across the country. The largest of these is currently in Winston-Salem and operates 6 production lines and employs 243 full-time employees. The company is proposing an expansion to include the addition of 2 new high-speed can manufacturing lines and the creation of 94 new jobs within the first year at an average wage of at least 130% of the Forsyth County private sector average. The project also includes a taxable capital investment of $5.5 million in building improvements and $190 million in machinery and equipment for a total investment of $195.5 million. A representative sample of job types among the 94 new positions include maintainers, palletizer operators, industrial truck operators, quality control, chemical process engineers, electricians, machinists, millwrights, and other salaried positions. In addition to Winston-Salem, the company is including sites in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. They are requesting financial assistance to reduce its capital outlay associated with the project. Staff proposes a total of $2,406,260 in performance-based economic development incentives. This represents 50% of the net new property taxes and 65% of the net new sales taxes expected to be generated over a 5-year period. This project is consistent with the city's public policy justification to stimulate the local economy through the creation of new jobs and investment. Both Forsyth County and the state of North Carolina are also considering financial assistance. If approved by the Finance Committee, the public hearing will be held at the City Council meeting next Monday on the 17th. As been mentioned, Mark Owens and Laura Lee and Walter Farabee with Greater Winston-Salem, Inc. are also here to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone, either Mark, Laura, or Walter, like to comment?
Thank you, Chairman Clark, Mayor Joins, and Mayor Pro Tem Adams. I'm going to turn it over to Laura Lee, our Senior VP of Economic Development. She and Walter Farabee, our Director of Expansion, Retention, and Real Estate, have been leading this project. Okay. So if that's okay, Laura would be able to speak for us today.
Okay. Ms. Lee, if you give your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Chairman Clark. Laura Lee, Greater Winston-Salem, Inc., 411 West 4th Street.
Thank you, ma'am. You have the floor.
Thank you. Chairman Clark, Mayor Joins, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, and members of Finance Committee and City Council. We are excited to bring this project for your consideration today at the Finance Committee. I know we spoke over a month or so ago with you in closed session about this project and have supplied several of the requested items as far as the job classifications. And as Ken stated, the 130% over the county averages is what we felt is incredibly impressive in this project, and also the capital investment. So we're excited about this potential opportunity for our community, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Scipio has a question. Then I'll move to Ms. Adams after that. Ms. Scipio, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, fellow council members and Mr. Mayor. I just have one question. I love how we present statistics, but I need to have a deeper meaning. What does 130% equate to in an actual average wage?
Councilmember Scipio, that the average private sector wage in Forsyth County is, as of January, is $54,914, and a minimum of 130% of that translates into a minimum of $71,388.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Adams.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Scipio. I was going to ask that as well. Going forward, you might want to put that in these reports. 243 full-time employees. The local workforce is 12.3 African-American, 86% Caucasian, with 17% of the employees residing within our corporate limits. I don't know, as we move forward on any of these, we need to do a better job at ensuring that, again, if they're going to hire some new people, that Winston-Salem is paying a pretty good chunk of money, like the county, and we only got like, what, 20-something%, 20 people or 29 that work here that lives in Winston. And then we only got like, well, maybe it's the African-American piece, and we got 41 or something citizens from Winston. I just think, you know, we hold contractors to our minority women in business goals and criteria, and hopefully we do, push the envelope for these businesses to make a good faith effort. I just want to say again that we cannot talk about equity and inclusion and diversity and give out the taxpayers' money that makes up over 30-something% of the city, Black people. And they don't even have a 12.3. And I'm concerned about that. You know, I'll support this. I'll vote for it. But again, I do believe you have to be intentional with these companies when you're talking about giving $2.4 million investment, and there's only a few African Americans or Latinos in the workforce, and they're talking about hiring, 94 new jobs. I really believe we need to make a good effort, you know, Laura and Walter and Owen and others, that we need to be more intentional about this. And that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, for your comments. Certainly, we agree with that. This is a really unique project, a great project. Here's a company that's been here for, 30 years about, and now they're getting ready to invest another $196 million, creating more jobs. The thing I want to make sure the public understands is we've been asked to give $2.4 million. It's not coming from our budget. It's coming from the company itself. We're just returning a portion of their dollars that they pay us. So over that same 5-year period where we're paying out 2.4, we'll receive about $5 million in taxes from this company. And so we use a portion of that to make those incentive payments. We'll keep the other 2.4 for that 5 years. After the 5 years is over, we'll start keeping all of it there. So it's a very strong project economically for the city of Winston-Salem to get the additional tax base and the additional jobs. And I'm hopeful, as Mayor Pro Tem said, that as they move forward with those 94 jobs, there'll be a very aggressive job program. And I know Councilmember Taylor, I'm not going to speak for him, but I know he has a real interest in that as well. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, man. Mr. Taylor, you have a question?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, members of the Finance Committee. One of the things I want to put out in front of us, I know it's in the front of our minds, but unemployment during COVID-19 did reach record highs. So I believe now it's important for cities and states across the country to retain existing jobs and to attract new jobs now more than ever in modern history. This company does have 243 full-time employees, so we have to think about retaining those jobs. We have to consider they are looking to add 94 new jobs to their workforce. I believe we have to be aggressively competitive because we are competing with other cities in North Carolina, but we're also competing with South Carolina, Georgia, and a few other states. And these cities and states all want access to these jobs and opportunities because COVID hit them the same way that they hit our city. Like has been already stated, I am a little concerned about the diversity numbers. The company's workforce is at around 86% European American and a little over 12% African American. One of the things that I always do when jobs come to the Southeast Ward is for the company to partner with me for a job fair for residents in our community. It's my understanding that they've agreed to the job fair, and I want to go to that in just one second. I see the folks from the chamber doing a little nodding. But they did agree to the job fair, and that does give us a real opportunity to partner with the company to improve on that diversity. The other good news is that the deal pays for itself. We'll be adding millions to the tax base over the next 5 years, and these numbers are based on the net new property and sales tax revenue that we'll receive by partnering with the company. All of these things considered, I'll be supporting the project.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Mr. McIntosh.
Question first, what is the projected timeline on acceptance of the deal? When will we know if they're going to do this deal here in Winston-Salem? And then at that point, how long will it take them to build out and to hire their additional workforce?
Ms. Lee, do you have any information on that?
Thank you, Chairman Clark. Yes, our expectation is that they would hire these jobs by the end of 2021. So they will be working quickly to fill these positions.
Okay.
So we should hear something from them pretty soon about.
Absolutely. And we expect, since we'll take this to your council meeting next week, that will trigger a decision.
Great. I'll echo something that.
Let's go ahead, Jeff. Excuse me. Go ahead.
I wanted to echo something that Councilmember Taylor said. This is net new money. These are net new jobs, and that we face losing jobs we have right now if we don't get this deal. It isn't the perfect deal from a demographic standpoint, but I know the folks at Greater Winston-Salem will be really pleased when they can bring us the perfect demographic deal that we all want. I know that they understand the pressures on all of us to bring those jobs and to provide that employment. I feel pretty confident that GWS is fully aware of what we want and is working as hard as they can to bring it to us. So this deal to me is a win-win. It's not a win-win-win, but it's a win-win. So I'm excited about us being in the hunt.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Mundy, I see your hand up. You're on mute.
Thank you. I had asked about this earlier. I don't remember this specific grant request or incentive request, but we were going to make sure that all of the documentation on the CARF and anything that the council reviewed did include confirmation that these folks were adhering to our non-discrimination ordinances. I don't see that on this document. I would assume that before we vote for this in full council that I would see that. And I want to see that on a regular basis so that I don't have to ask every time.
Ms. Lee, are you aware what he's asking for?
Chairman Clark, yes, we are. And Walter actually spoke with the company contact, and we did receive their EEO statement, and it does include all of the language, Councilmember Mundy, that you requested.
So
that language.
So can whoever prepares the CARF, and I'm not actually sure who does that, could we make sure going forward that that's just a standard boilerplate item that goes in just like our demographic breakdown? And I would say the same is true as we award contracts, because I don't feel good voting on anything if I don't know that these standards have been met.
Councilmember Mundy, we will ensure that that is included in all future requests coming for economic development projects.
Thank you very much.
City Attorney Carmen had a comment. Ms. Carmen?
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman Clark, council members, committee members. The independent contractors agreement has been updated to include all the requirements of the non-discrimination ordinance, and all of the downtown development agreements as well as the economic development agreements will contain that same information. So they will execute contracts with the required information as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any other hands up. Can I get a motion on item G3, please?
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion to second on G3. If the city clerk would please poll the committee.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Councilmember McIntosh,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Aye, that is approved. We have one more item, and that is G4. If the city clerk will please read that one.
Item G4, information on requested amendments to the Truist Stadium lease agreement from Winston-Salem LLC.
Mr. Rao, I know you're out there somewhere. This is for information only today, but if you could, you or whoever you would like to present this.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon again, Chairman Clark, Mayor Joins, Mayor Pro Tempore Adams, members of the City Council. Excuse me. This is an information item. Back in February, the Mayor and Council approved a new lease agreement with Winston-Salem LLC for a lease agreement for Truist Stadium. As part of that agreement, the city entered into a new 25-year lease that reduced the annual lease payment by 50%, eliminated the ticket surcharge, and set a common due date of June 1st for the lease payment, as well as the economic incentive payment. Altogether, the team's commitment was reduced by $970,000, which includes the reduction in the lease payment as well as the elimination of the ticket surcharge. Since that time, city staff and our legal counsel have drafted an agreement that reflects the changes that the council approved. Those were the only changes that were approved. All other elements of the agreement, of the original agreement, remain the same. We have received requested changes from the team, have reviewed those, and have given our feedback about those. And our initial response from management was that we did not accept those changes. Since that time, and here within the last week or so, they have come back to us and indicated that Major League Baseball has said that the current lease agreement, that they could not approve that lease agreement in its current form. And so they have requested changes as well. So to kind of help sort through the versions, because now there are basically 3 versions of this agreement, I've now included a table in the information item today. I'm going to have Meredith bring that up. I'm not going to read it, but I just want to point out the differences across the 3 agreements. And so the first one there relates to the base rent. As I indicated, you all approved an agreement that would make the rent due on June 1st. In the Dashes version of the agreement, they moved it back to October 1st, and there's a reason for that here in a moment. And then Major League Baseball maintained the due date at June 1st. Probably the most significant change or most significant request from both is what we call base rent adjustments. There are no adjustments to the rent in the city's version. You all did not approve anything like that, but there is language related to 2 scenarios. One would be a reduction for each game that's canceled due to basically conditions that are beyond the control of the team, whether it's COVID-19 or another epidemic, government restrictions, acts of God, union work stoppages, that type of thing. And then secondly, there would be a reduction based on games where they cannot operate at full capacity or at 80% of full capacity due to government restrictions or regulations. And so there's a formula for that. But the language for both of those rent adjustments are in the Dash version as well as in the MLB version of the agreement. The next item is the letter of credit. In the agreement that the city has put together, the line of credit requirement remained at $1.2 million on the effective date, and then would reduce down to $900,000 if there was no disqualifying event, and that would go into effect January 1st of 2026. In the Dash requested changes, they requested to reduce it to $750,000. And then reduce it down to $500,000. MLB's requested a reduction to $900,000 by the effective date, and $750,000 if there's no disqualifying event, an adjustment on January 1st of 2026. Let me just, before we go to the next page here, just go back up to the rent adjustments. So part of the reason for the Dash's request for an October 1st due date, it would be that we would work through any rent adjustments, and then they would make a payment in October 1st. With the MLB version, basically they would make the payment on June 1st, and then at the end of the season, there would be an accounting of any kind of rent reductions, and either the city would repay, I guess, what was lost, or credit the reduction in the following year's rent. Go to the next page, Meredith. So moving through the different elements here, section 9 of the agreement talks about compliance with laws and baseball rules. Again, the city's already obligated to make sure that the stadium meets professional baseball standards. But in the DASH request and in the major MLB request, they note that again. And I think that part of it's driven by the fact that will be new requirements of Major League Baseball, of minor league facilities. So there's kind of a restatement of that. And then there's added language saying that the city would be subject to comply with what they call health and safety facility upgrades that are related to COVID-19 or any other pandemics. As an aside, we have been working with the team on making sure that they have measures in place like plexiglass to be prepared to open this year. The next one, there's just a number of some language in there about liability insurance, waivers, indemnifications. I'm not going to get into the details, but basically all the requirements that were in the original agreement are in our version, because that was not changed. And the DASH version, basically they maintained that language, but in the MLB version they changed the limits required of the team to a per occurrence as opposed to a per person coverage, and then caps the overall aggregate limit to $4 million. Also requires the city to maintain commercial general liability insurance where self-insured. So I think we have to work through that, and then added some indemnification language there. Another section, section 40, basically no change in the city's draft and the DASH's draft, but with the MLB requested changes, they are requiring advanced approval by what they call the Professional Development League for any alterations or modifications to the lease agreement. So we have to get their approval for that. Next page. And the last couple, there's a new section that the DASH and Major League Baseball added called PDL requirements. That's Professional Development League requirements. Basically, the DASH just stated that it requires Major League Baseball to approve the lease and any amendments. The Major League Baseball version goes into a lot more detail about requirements, and I note those there. That it establishes definitions for what PDL stands for, PDL club, just various terminology. It subordinates the lease to PDL rules and regulations. It sets an effective date of suspension or termination for after the season. So if we were to terminate the lease agreement under this language, we would have to wait until after the season to actually execute that. Requires approval by Major League Baseball and limits the liability of Major League Baseball. Basically, there's some more indemnification language there. And then finally, there is an exhibit at the end of the agreement that lists out the responsibilities between the city and the team for the stadium facility, both replacement, repair, and maintenance. As we noted when we presented this item to you, that there was no changes in maintenance responsibilities. The requested changes from the team changed the responsibility for playground equipment and for the internet Wi-Fi infrastructure to the city. And as another aside, playground equipment is a revenue generating asset that's noted in the agreement, and that's the responsibility of the team. And then, but with Major League Baseball, their version, they had no changes. So they maintained the same responsibilities that are in the current agreement. So those are the three different versions. City staff and our council were working, with the team's council on working through these differences. As I mentioned, they're saying that Major League Baseball will not approve the lease without the changes that they've put forward. So we're working on trying to make sure we understand when it says 80% capacity, is that 80% capacity, reflective of their normal experience, so that if that's going to be the benchmark for determining if they operate at something less than that due to government restriction, that truly would activate a rent reduction. And also just make sure we understand this new language in there that Major League Baseball added about the professional development league requirements, and also the liability language as well. So that's where we are. The plan is to try to bring back an action to you all to approve any changes to the lease agreement that you all had approved back in February. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. McIntosh, you had your hand up.
Yeah, quickly, just on the base rent adjustments, I'm assuming this, but I thought I'd better ask. Under the Major League Baseball requested changes, number 1, that does not include weather events, correct?
So that's an excellent question, Councilmember McIntosh. I've posed that question, and what I've been told is that doesn't include your typical rainout.
Okay. All right. That was my concern. And then can you go into a little bit of definition and explain why the letter of credit, that change is significant? And what that letter of credit is for?
Yes, sir. And we did not ask the team, in their version, but my assumption is that, their new lease payment is $750,000 under the new lease, and so my assumption is that they wanted to reduce it because that would be the extent of their need if they had to access that line of credit. And are thinking about the MLB, might be they're just trying to split the difference, but we can certainly follow up and get clarity on that.
And that letter of credit just states that they have the ability to pay that much money, essentially.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Adams?
It just seems like they just, the gift that keeps on giving. They come back now. It doesn't even have to be a recession, Councilmember Clark. It doesn't even now have to be COVID. But my thing is, these changes that they're asking for, I thought we were operating in good faith back in February to try to create a win-win situation for us all. But I don't know, maybe it's just me. I don't have a good warm fuzzy about this because it just seems, don't get me wrong, we all are hurting. We all are trying to get back to some normalcy. But I feel like sometimes folks trying to take advantage of us. And whether that's Major League with all the cities with these teams, I do not know. What I would be interested in seeing, again, is the financial impact to the city of Winston-Salem on these changes that they want. And they need to be either red, yellow, or green. Green means we're okay, no really financial impact. Yellow means possibility down the road. Red means right now if we do this. I'd be interested also to hear from the city attorney as to just what happens if we say no. My thing is we got a lot of businesses that need our help. And with this, I'd be interested, Mr. Rao, the financial people with the city, Ms. Saunders, were these baseball teams eligible for any of that COVID money and all that other money that came down?
Okay, thank you. Ms. Scipio, you're up. You're at
Thank you. Thank you. I just have just one little question. I know that Major League Baseball reduced the number of teams that it was supporting. And I'm just curious to know whether all of the stadiums that other teams in the league are playing in are being asked to do the very same deal, which is to really have Major League govern how these minor teams operate in the cities that they live in. I just want to know if it's what they're doing across the nation. If we can find that out, I think it's what they're doing in terms of working with cities where their minor teams are.
Councilmember Scipio, that's exactly my next step, is to at least reach out to Durham and Kannapolis and Fayetteville to find out, are they having similar discussions, or are the discussions being driven by these types of requests?
And Greensboro, I think, would also be in there, right?
I'm sorry?
Greensboro.
Well, that's a privately owned stadium, so.
Okay. I'll just offer a few comments myself. I'm curious, I do think you need to put in that language that rain is excluded, because rain is certainly an act of God. I can understand if the governor puts restrictions on how many people could attend, but I would add to that, conversely, do we get additional rent if they make the playoffs and they play more games? So just offer that up. The additional items, the Wi-Fi and the playground, if we could get an order of magnitude number on that. I do have concerns with the playground because that's a revenue generating thing for them. But I would hope the Wi-Fi, maybe some of the actual carriers would come in there and put the equipment in, since just like we have Wi-Fi all over town. But anyway, those two items. Third, I would be curious as to the capacity. There is a bank in left field, which is just grass, that I don't know what the capacity would be, but reminds me of that. Somebody asked me how many people can fit in the BB&T football stadium for Wake Forest, and they've got a very large open end zone. And I think the actual capacity, it could be some huge number if you count the grassy areas where people can sit and stand. So, Mr. Rao, I would be sure we document what that capacity number is.
Sure.
With that, I would suggest I like Ms. Adams' comment about green, yellow, red, or however you want to do it. Some of these changes, I think, are do not impact us much. For example, the insurance, whether it's on event or per person, that may be something that's being pushed down to them from the insurance companies, because I would say per person is probably more exact of the liability potential than event. But things of that sort would be very helpful. And also, if Major League and the local folks could, I think they need to speak with one voice. But I don't know how you do that. But anyway, I would just say continue forward. And if you want to poll the individual committee members prior to the next committee meeting, so that we can come in with a specific recommendation.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I see your hand up.
Well, thank you. Good comments, Mr. Chairman. I just was thinking that, the red, green, yellow, looking at things, the biggest one, of course, would be the reduction of the lease if the games are canceled because of COVID or whatever. I'm wondering if it might be for us to think about using a portion of our 55 million to create some kind of little rainy day fund there that we could tap into if something came along, we had to reduce the lease payments. So let's maybe keep that in mind, Ben, as we go.
Excellent point.
Yes, sir.
All righty. So Mr. Rao's and Ms. Tony going to study the new requirements tonight. So we'll have that email in the morning. And he's also going to talk with each one of us individually about the baseball. This is a very complex issue, and it's difficult to do it at a committee level. I think you just need to get with the various committee members and come back with specific recommendations, ideally that they've agreed to, and then we can move forward with it. Mr. Mayor, Monday nights, you need to get Project Blue Wave done for us. And with that, any other items to bring to the committee? If not, it is 5:20 at 6 o'clock. Public safety will take place. Mr. Taylor, is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, so we'll do that. And with that, we will stand adjourned. Thank y'all all.